What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing day 2, that is rounds 2 and 3 of this 3-round mock draft with trades. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be doing a recap of round 1, but just enjoy it in the moment. We're going to be going over the trades that happened, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of stuff that some of you guys loved, some of you guys didn't, but we do this every single week to be able to continue testing out new theories, being able to look at new fits, and then also just kind of perfect the draft the way that we want to. So I love you guys for that. Let's get into this. Of course, if you guys want to look at my board below my face, it is going to be extremely unique. Is it for the sole purpose of being unique? No, it is solely being 100% honest. I think if everybody was putting out their 100% honest opinion, you'd see boards that were extremely wacky like mine. But I owe you honesty, and I back it up with all 22 clips over on my X page. Feel free to go click the link tree. It's a link in the link tree. But let's get on with it. I do respond to every single comment. Again, I talked about this in the last video. It's one of my favorite parts, so please do comment and let me know, even if you don't agree with something. I always say be a dick, don't be a dick about it. If I do something that's wrong, by all means. Like, my dumbass ended up talking about the 3rd-round pick Buffalo sent for Amari Cooper and was like, where is it? And yeah, so it's like, you guys called me out on that. It was like, okay, I realized it after the fact, but it's good. Hold me to that type of standard because I want to make good content for you, and you guys want to see good content. Let's not waste each other's time, right? So it's a good relationship between us. I love you guys. I was in a suit in the last episode. I can't really say the reason why, but this one, we actually have a Jamar Chase LSU jersey, so we're going to be rocking that today. I'm super excited for that. Ended up getting it as a gift, so I'm super hyped because, let's just say, there were some logistical problems in acquiring it, but we ended up getting it. Finally, I love it. Let's get into this, starting out with the number... Oh, I'm tripping. I was about to go straight into mock draft mode. No, but we'll go over the trades. You guys can read the other picks. Not many people use pure audio on this. If you do, I'm sorry, but, like, for everyone's sake, please go watch the first round. That's why we have it. But Jacksonville did a trade with the Carolina Panthers. People didn't like about the fact we sent a 2nd-round pick. I do think there was a little bit of a neglect of the fact that we ended up actually sending back a 3rd-round pick. Like, we will be addressing needs, and I know, like, yeah, it's not fun to send a 2nd-round pick. I get it. But I did want to keep the quantity of picks proper for both teams, respectively, and I actually ended up leveraging that 2nd-round pick in a move back up. So I essentially just pretty much moved the Raiders down, right? And basically just reshifted the order here. I do want to say, again, we ended up sending that 3rd back. Yes, the free pick that you guys got for Mingo, which was ludicrous, did end up being part of that deal, but I still think that it's perfectly reasonable. You go and you move up, you take a difference maker, you're in a super duper deep edge class, and you're going to be one of the teams that took it in the 2nd. I don't think Jacksonville or Vegas are going to be teams that are looking for it. So at least you're not arming a team with the pick that would be used for a player that you'd want. So at least there's that. At least they're not going to take someone that you would have taken, which is a little bit of a plus. But then we had the Jets. So we had like a full shift here from 9 to 5. We all don't like hearing that phrase, 9 to 5, do we? But we had the Saints move up, small move up for Tetairoa McMillan. Ended up sending pretty much the picks that were for Marshawn Lattimore up for Tetairoa McMillan. Super excited about that. I know it's a little pricey, but again, sometimes you just got to pay a price for someone who can make a big impact on your team. It's my favorite fit in the entire draft, arguably, for Tetairoa. So I do like to leverage it. Of course, via that trade back with the Jaguars after they traded back with the Panthers, we had the Raiders going Ashton Genty. I do think if, like, right now, all signs are leading to Ben Johnson going there. A lot of his success was through a very solid run game, and I'm not saying that the run game is why Ben Johnson's successful. Like, he's very smart and stuff, but I think that he understands the value of having high-end running backs and was on a team that had a high-end running back that was taken high in the draft. Ashton Genty is a super stud. Would love to see him there. And then Sincere McCormick really could be that, like, number 2 running back. You could still go and draft another one if you'd please. But I do actually quite like that, adding a 2nd-round pick in that equation as well. Of course, then via that trade back with New Orleans, so we'll get through this, don't worry. You got Josh Simmons here. He actually played a year of right tackle when he first came to Ohio State. It was his worst year, but he also has been polishing exponentially every single year. So I do think it would be a different story this next time around. Atlanta did a double trade back, first with Seattle to move up and to select Malachi Starks. Then when they were sitting at 18, I was a little bit of a douche, and I ended up having a trade with Cincinnati in Tampa to get Jahad Campbell and snipe him from the Falcons. Again, going to be a little bit of a douche there, but I give the Falcons a lot of love, and I decided to, we got to keep it equal here. No biases. But then we had the Bills using one of their second round picks to move up for Emeka Ibuka to be able to play on the outside. I think that was like, I've always wanted to test the theory out of the Bills using one of their picks. And I really do like how that ended up turning out. Then, of course, via that trade back to Tampa Bay, you had the Bengals taking Tyleik Williams. Then the Steelers did a deal with the Eagles. I ended up shifting one of the picks because, of course, PFF always recycles and have to redo the whole mock draft. But PFF ended up like allowing me to give, rather than I think it was pick 164 to go to 167. So I just know Howie would like to be a little bit more cognizant of which picks he would send. And so we had that trade up because I do think Dallas Goedert's tenure is limited. And you brought on Dallas Goedert when Ertz, I think, was 28. I think Brent Selleck was 28. And then, I think you brought on Brent Selleck when the other tight end that you guys acquired was 28 years old. So you guys have a tendency of being able to bring on tight ends when you're, not really at the end of one's career yet, but also Dallas has been unreliably healthy. And I didn't feel comfortable with the players there for Pitt, and I'm just going to spoil it. Ended up getting the player I wanted at 21 for Pittsburgh back at that spot. So we got free picks. Minnesota wanting to get more picks and having a left tackle that's legit on the board. I could not let that pass up for a team that is definitely looking for offensive line in the Browns. They ended up moving up there. Then via that double trade back, we got Braden Swinson here at 29. I know that ruffled some people's feathers, but again, if you guys don't think Braden Swinson is at least considerable as a late first round pick, I urge you to go watch him, because right now, I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the fact that I've become a fanatic, and I know a couple people who do follow the X page are a little bit larger content creators. Maybe they saw it and were like, let's just take a peek and see if Alex is too insane. And they said, maybe Alex is insane, but not too insane. Because I've been seeing a massive movement of Braden Swinson, and I'd love to see it. He had a 33.9% pass rush win rate on true pass rushing sets, which is only second to Abdul Carter, if I'm not mistaken. And then technically you do have, why am I forgetting? Josiah Stewart. But Josiah, I'm just going to be honest, I don't fully trust those numbers. But I digress. Braden Swinson's a stud. You got to get a ton of draft capital in the process. We still will be able to address edge rusher too. And continuing on, we had Pittsburgh going after Trey Amos. And then Detroit, I was like sitting there, Kenneth Grant was on the board. And I was like, damn. Like, people always say go Mason Graham for the Jaguars. I was like, let's test this out, man. I mean, like, they want to go after a high upside defensive interior. Balky would love this. So I ended up doing it. So, and also it was incentivizing a team to take him before we had the Vikings, since Detroit's like, well, we're not going to take him. We don't want our own division guy to take him. That's a long way of getting to pick number 33. We're going through pick 100, so let's put a little bit of the pedal to the metal, if you will. For the Vikings at pick 33, 93 and 97 both could be corner picks. Like, I know at that point, we're going to be in a spot where you might be able to get Zy Alexander, but I think he's going to... Why is Dalen Everett still on here? He returned to school. But maybe Denzel Burke. We could potentially see Damani Jackson also return to school. Davison Igbinosun, Jermari Harris, Kobe Bryant. I like the potential there. What I don't really like, because I'm looking at Jahdae Barron, I would say, hey, that's perfect for why am I forgetting Murphy's name? Byron Murphy. I almost called him Miles Murphy. But I would say for Murphy's replacement, Jahdae Barron would be awesome. I do think that you need to win in the trenches. Tyler Booker, going to be that guy for me. And, the value is incredible. At 33, you get a high floor player that has ridiculous talent. I say that's a win-win. At 34 for the New York Giants, we ended up taking Shedeur at number 3. And yeah, I know, I'm like, a lot of people were voicing their disapproval of the pick. They weren't saying it's like inaccurate. They don't like it. And, I agree, for the fact that I ended up making the pick for, again, you can go back and listen to a more fleshed out reason. But, with Shane and Dable on such short leashes, they're going to do self-preservation move. Like, what can give you the biggest return on investment for the short run? Not for like what's actually best for the team, but who can get you a couple wins here, a couple wins there. And, not necessarily who's going to make you championship ready. And Shedeur Sanders will absolutely do that for the team. It will elevate the roster just a little bit. And that can end up keeping their job for a year, maybe 2 more. And it's not necessarily the most enjoyable thing for you to hear. But at the same time, that is just like That's a human characteristic. If your job is on the line, you're going to do what you can to save yourself. And that's why I love Joe Shane, and he did a great job drafting last year. I still would have fired him. Or if I'm Mara, I am 100% going to be lurking like a hawk to make sure that these moves are actually what's best for the team. Like, you just can't trust somebody whose job is on the line to do something as well as they did last year, where they ended up doing actually what's best for the team, even though probably should have went Spencer Rattler in like the 5th round. But I digress. I think for the Giants, a boundary corner, you guys say it all the time. I have Ben Morrison returning in this. I do want to continue saying that. It is in the description, but again, I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, I'm not going to say it because it's in the description. I didn't say it at the beginning, but I always forget to. But I do think Jahdae Barron is going to be a little bit more closer to Andrew Phillips, someone who could be more in the slot, even though he's more of a zone coverage guy in the first place. I do think Andrew Phillips, like if you want to go after someone who has a similar skill set to Andrew Phillips, it's going to be Darian Porter here, 6'4", 200 pounds. He's very, very, very green at the position, but he's been fantastic nonetheless this past year. I mean, 4.7 passer rating. I don't think I've even brought up that statistic before. But, he has such quick feet for his size. That's something I really love about Darian Porter. Like, he's older, but who gives a shit? I mean, the guy hasn't been playing a ton of reps. The time that age truly matters is, hey, you've been playing like 5 years of every single down, and you're still having issues. First off, Darian Porter's not even having issues, right? 3 interceptions, 4.7 passer rating on an entire pretty much year, 17 targets, 70 yards, 3 interceptions. That's ridiculous, right? But on top of that, he played special teams and wide receiver a lot as well. So there's a ton of tread on the tires. The guy's body is certainly in a very solid position to be able to have a much longer career than the 24 years suggests. So I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to go after someone who I have, I believe, at number 37 on my board there in Darian Porter. At 35 for the Tennessee Titans, first pick was Cam Ward. I think this is a great opportunity to trade back. You got guys like Jahdae Barron, Io Maynor here. Io Maynor would be a good get for the Titans, but I do want to see, hey, is there going to be a team that maybe wants Jack Sawyer, jump the Detroit Lions here? Is there a team that wants Jahdae, Io Maynor? And looking at some teams that could certainly be in that realm, technically the Bears could be looking to jump an in-division rival and kind of rob them of a potential player that would be a good fit. That's certainly possible. But at the same time, I don't really see it as a competitive advantage to the Bears to, lose draft capital and then end up getting Jack Sawyer. And I'm trying to see who would end up making a move that's this ballsy, right? Jahdae Barron is a stud. Like, who would be willing to get a little bit aggressive? Technically, the Falcons do have multiple 2nd and 3rd round picks now. Like, they could be the type that wants to move up and then pair up Jahdae Barron in that secondary. The question is, someone ended up posing this and did a great job. With the new defensive coordinator, are you going to be going more zone heavy or more man? Because I think it was with D. Alford. He ended up not being great in zone. He's more of a man coverage corner. I think AJ Terrell is awesome, regardless of whether he's man or zone. But if you want to stick to the zone concept, you might want to go Jahdae Barron here. Like, that would be something that I think is worth moving up for. You got guys like Cam Scatabo. There's like Mason Taylor, Jaden Higgins. There's some really good players on the board. So, I mean, it's tough because I do want to find someone who wants to trade up. And, like, is there any left tackle available? No. There's Jonah here. It's there could be some teams that are looking for interior offensive line with tackle versatility that could want to try to jump up to this point. But man, that's a tall task. That's a very expensive move up to be able to move up to this spot, man. I mean, the Seahawks aren't going to trade up twice. I don't think that's going to be the case. Like, you could see the Falcons try to get aggressive. They did it at the top of last draft. We'll take a peek. Because I do think the Falcons, we do have 2 of these picks here that could be leveraged. Damn, both these teams are really not in good spots, are they? I don't think that we're going to get a buyer. I really wanted to move back here. I was really trying to force it, and I cannot find a buyer that would be willing to be able to spend that type of capital here. I do think offensive line needs to be fixed in free agency, so just keep that in mind. Xavier Restrepo is just such a dream pick to be able to put him back with Cam Ward. He's just not as good of a player as Higgins and Io Maynor, in my opinion. He's an awesome receiver, but at the same time, he has only 1 year of experience with Restrepo. It's not like they've played together for 6 years. It's good to see that they have that kind of like that bond, but rapport was the word I was looking for. But I do think that you can get better value elsewhere. I'm going to go Io Maynor here. I think if you have to stick and pick, you got to do what's best for your team. Having somebody who could go into that DeAndre Hopkins role would be kind of ideal. Technically, Higgins could be better at that, but Io Maynor, I do think, will be looked at as a more favorable option in terms of overall athleticism after the catchability than what they have there in Jaden Higgins. At pick number 36 for the Lions, I know. Some people just don't like the Jack Sawyer pick, but we still got to move back and get some extra draft capital. I think that was a good thing for us to do. Now, we could try to pass on it and say, hey, we're going to see what edges kind of slip to us at 64. But I also think the interior of the offensive line will be there too. Because I was looking at Jonas Savania for that pick, but we got to go Jack Sawyer at this point. He is just the definition of a Detroit Lion. Even though he went to Ohio State instead of Michigan, he is somebody who is crazy motor, super high floor. I know you have some guys like that on your team right now, but this is also someone who's going to be a longer term contract and someone who is just built to be a locker room asset and someone who could be an asset on the field as well. At number 37 for the Las Vegas Raiders, we ended up doing that trade back to get Ashton Jeanty in round number 1. Here in round number 2, you could look at Jalen Milroe. I am not going to select him at this spot. I think Tom Brady will either find someone on day 3, maybe later at like pick 68, but we do have that extra second round pick rather than that third round pick. We did that trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars, technically after they already did a trade with the Panthers. So we ended up moving back to the Panthers spot for those of y'all who are confused. But I mean, corner certainly is something you could focus on. If Ben Morrison were coming out, he would have been gone by now, FYI. So maybe like Darian Porter at the spot would be cool. I don't think Jahdae Barron's going to be an asset based on the corner archetype that you guys have been drafting. I know, yes, you don't have Telesco anymore, but you got to build a team that works well together. Defensive interior, I don't think is going to be that much of an upgrade to your roster. I do think wide receiver could be, though. And I know this is not going to be a sexy pick, but I think just continuing to retool this team with weapons is just the easiest way to get it back to where you need it to be. You have the best tight end in the NFL. You have a really serviceable, if not great or a good to great offensive line. And then you really do lack wide receivers. You lack a quarterback. But if you force a quarterback, you still probably might be lacking a quarterback, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm going to go Jaden Higgins here. 6'4", 215 pounds. 58% I think he's over 60% of his career contested catch rate. He's just been the definition of reliability. If the Titans fans don't want Io Maynor, I would still consider him there for the Raiders. But I do think that continuing to bolster the weapons core is going to be how you have the most success. At number 38 for the New England Patriots, we took Travis Hunter in the first to be a corner. And here at this spot, I'm looking at Walter Nolan and kind of intrigued, not going to lie. The offensive tackles, I was talking about it earlier, just not looking good. Donovan Jackson's a beast, but at the same time, I just don't trust him yet. I mean, look at the quantity of reps he's had at left tackle. 465 on his career. It's very minimal. Very minimal. And he's done so good. Literally, look at this progression. He had struggles early on, and he really has improved. So you could consider it, but man, that's a big risk, a massive risk. Jonas Savania, also somebody who I think could be a tackle. I don't know why people say he's exclusively interior, but I think that he is somebody, if you wanted to put him interior, he wouldn't say no because he's going to be really good. He was actually very solid as a guard before moving to tackle. So there's that. But I mean, we don't play around when it comes to tackles. You don't test out theories like that. Now, Ursery's someone you could sit and develop. He's someone who definitely he's going to be a road grader off the bat. I think he's a better project than Cam Williams, to be fair. Let's go after Ursery. I mean, I feel like that's fair. We have 69 and 77 as well. I think Ursery's worth that early round 2 shot because he has all of the tools that you're looking for. And there's some flexibility or some balance and flexibility concerns because he rounds his back and stuff. But I mean, at the same time, Will Campbell is there standing, sitting straight up. And I've seen him on some reps in a 3-point stance. Dude doesn't look comfortable, but I think that we should be not not criticizing Ursary. I think we should use like a little bit more diligence looking at other offensive tackles with their potential flexibility as well. For number 39 for the Chicago Bears, we ended up going after Will Campbell in the first. And at this point, I could see us going a multitude of routes. You could look at the running back spot. I don't think that that's the place I'm going to go. I do have an idea that we could go Jonah Savania to play center for us at this point. It's a very, very weak center class. I do think edge rusher as well is an amazing get, and that's going to be one of these next 2 picks. So do not fret. We're going to go and get an edge rusher. But what we could also do, since we already got some interior offensive line help, we could also go to free agency to sign them. We could just go balls to the wall, go after edge and defensive interior here, and pretty much totally retool the interior of the defensive line. I think I want to throw a curveball and go that way because I'm just essentially addicted to taking offensive linemen for the Bears, for lack of a better term. And Walter Nolan's had a fantastic year. It's going to be kind of hard to pass on at this point, and it would probably be my next pick for the Saints. So speaking of, we have the Saints. They ended up trading up to draft Tetro McMillan. We could trade back here, but tell me that Shedeur Sanders is not built to be a Saint, right? I've heard a lot of people even saying that you guys are connected to Shedeur Sanders. Makes sense. He's big, freak athlete, needs a lot of room to grow. And for that, I will be taking him. It is kind of one of those things where it fits. The shoe fits, man. The shoe fits. And so I'm going to be taking him there. At 41 for the Chicago Bears, we went Walter Nolan as well as Will Campbell. This is kind of acing the draft for the Bears at the moment. We're going to be going after an edge rusher. You got Umami Ellen. You got JT Tuimalau. You got Micah Green still on the board. Mike Green's fantastic. You got Antoine Powell-Ryland, who I absolutely adore. I have an 83-minute video out on the edge rushers in this class, so you can go feel free and go check that out as well. Princely is someone who I think will go higher than what I necessarily rank him, because I have JT above Princely. But Princely also is just super flexible. He's done such a good job improving every year, in my opinion. And he really did a good job this year. It's just that I feel like his read step's a little too slow, and that's something that could easily improve in the NFL. So we're going to go Princely Umami-Ellen here to the Chicago Bears. The Jets at 42, we ended up trading back and getting a Josh Simmons there at, at number 9. So ended up getting a little bit extra draft capital, which was always fun. I think we need to look at a boundary corner here, and Ben Morrison considered returning until he ends up declaring, which we have 8 more days of torture. 8 more. Jahdae Barron might just be too good to pass on at the moment. I know it doesn't necessarily fit with what the Jets do, but I mean, sometimes you just got to get the player and find a way to make him work, man. He is fantastic. He's just not built to be on the he's not really built to be a boundary corner. He's sub 6 foot. I've heard he has shorter arms. To be fair though, I am seeing a team that could trade up here. And this is where the draft capital starts feeling a little bit more comfortable for a team like the Falcons. The Falcons, I was talking about it earlier, it just depends on what your DC is going to, who your DC is going to be and what this, philosophy is going to be. But right now, you guys are heavier in zone. And I know that we just traded back. We got all these goodies. But, honestly, for the Falcons, I could see this being, a move where you could try to flip these two. I'm not going to do it because it's a little too much. And a 2-spot jump took 120 in the mid first. I'm actually going to say that you guys should be getting something back in this trade. So 46, 136 for 42 and 186. You could flip it to 158 if you so please, but we're probably going to be making some more moves with Atlanta. I just think we need to secure this right now before a couple of the other teams would like to have a versatile defensive back like this. We're going to go Jahdae Barron. At 43 for the San Francisco 49ers. We ended up going after offensive line with Kelvin Banks in the first. I think defensive interior certainly is a move you can go after. I mean, you got TJ Sanders here, who I think is a super stud. You got Derek Harmon in the mix as well. But I also think that the edge rushing class is just too good to pass on. I think Mike Green is going to have a ton of potential and a lot of excitement. But JT Tuimalau is going to be one of those guys who's just rock solid. And that's what the Niners have kind of equipped their defense with. A player that I honestly could see as a 49er is Donovan Azurewaku. I haven't taken him to this team before. But he's just, I don't know, the physicality. He does not look 247. I've stood right next to him. Like, when he came to SMU, I was like 2 feet away from this guy. He looks a little bit bigger, and he plays a lot larger than 247. I think he plays closer to the 260 mark, and so we're going to take Donovan Ezirawaku there and give him a little bit more love. And number 44 for the Dallas Cowboys, TJ Sanders is here. It makes a ton of sense. We went Amari and Hampton there in the first round. You could go wide receiver here if you so please. A lot of really, really, really good options, but we also have 76 for that. I think TJ Sanders is an absolute stud. TJ is somewhere in this range. He's at number 58 overall on my board. So I am glad to give him the love that he deserves. TJ Sanders going in to that defensive front. At number 45 for the Indianapolis Colts, we ended up going after Tyler Warren correctly in the first round. I do think that defensive interior and edge are spots to look at, as well as safety. I love to go the safety route, but I do think, like, I'm trying to figure out who your guy would be out of the guys who are left, because I know you guys appreciate like the higher end technicians. I think Antoine Powell-Ryland at pick 80 might be the move for you. So we're going to go defensive back still. I love Xavier Watts right down the road. Ball hawk kind of makes sense. You can pair him up there with Nick Cross. Is it Nick Cross? Yeah, I want to say Charles Cross, but we're going to go Xavier Watts here. I think that, again, right down the road, makes a ton of sense for the team, upgrades the defense, and like you're going to punish people for being able to throw deep on you guys at this point. At number 46 for the New York Jets, we ended up going after Josh Simmons in the first round. I think defensive interior could be the move now at this point with Derek Harmon. We traded back. A boundary corner would work as well. I just don't think that the value is necessarily there the way it is in the third round. And so with all that being said, I'm actually going to look at defensive interior here, and I think Derek Harmon's perfect. He looks good in green. That's a start. He's only been playing in green at Michigan State as well as Oregon. He is super young, and he did a phenomenal job this year. Phenomenal job. Could easily be a first-round pick. At number 47 for the Arizona Cardinals, kind of would have been a pick I would have loved for you guys as Derek Harmon, but did not. We ended up going after James Pierce in the first round. Defensive interior with Omar Norman-Lott excites me. I know that some people don't love that, but I'm a super big fan of Omar Norman-Lott. He just has very limited reps. And the thing is, I still might take him here because first off, they're teammates. Instant chemistry. That'd be kind of fun. But on top of that, I think that I would definitely consider it for Miami. I would definitely consider it for Cincinnati. I would consider it for a lot of the teams coming up here, including the Steelers. So, I'm not going to reach because it's not a reach. For me, I literally have him. Where's he out on my board? Number 20. It's going to be worth it. We're going to go Omar Norman-Lott. Again, you have that instant chemistry too, which I love. He is, like, for those of y'all wondering his weight, 6'3", 315. And, I think that he's just been in a really deep rotation, freak athlete with a lot of room to grow and learn. At 48 for the Dolphins, went Jalen Walker in the first via the Bro Schmo recommendation. And so at this point, I don't think I can let Jonas Savania pass up any further. He is an extremely versatile, valuable piece on a multitude of spots on the offensive line. And that's going to be extremely valuable for a team that definitely needs it. At 49 for the Bengals, went Tyleik Williams via trade back in the first. We're going back to the trenches because I need to take this guy sooner than later. We're going Donovan Jackson to play guard with the upside of playing tackle as well in the long run. You need it. You need as much help as you can on both sides of the offensive line. But those guard spots, not good. And you need to do something to address it. And Donovan Jackson is too good a value, which would have been great for my Seahawks. I ended up kind of fleecing you guys right there. I do apologize for that. But edge is a position that's very underrated as well. I don't think we can ignore guard, though. You got Tate Ratledge here, who I think would be a great pickup. Gray Zabel is a potential center. But the player who I think is great for you guys, and maybe we could try to trade back and still get him because the Chargers, I believe, selected an interior in the first round. They did, in Armand Membu. Like, let's see. What team we're going to be looking at it? You got technically the Texans here. But outside the Texans, I'm not seeing too many teams that are going to like guarantee going after an interior offensive lineman. I think we can move back and still get Marcus Bowe because there are some really good players like JT Tuimoloau, Mike Green. I mean, like, by the way, Eagles fans, we still have Mike Green on the board, and we have some really good players that definitely could still fit on the Eagles. But technically, the Bills could get ballsy again. I don't think that's a move I want to make with Buffalo because that is just a little bit pricey. Who's looking for an edge? Technically, we would have, if we didn't go Michael Williams, the Packers would have been great. The Chargers could be looking for one. Definitely the Bucks could be looking for another one as well if you want to use Jod Campbell. The Commanders, they're a little too pick strapped. Damn. Like, if I'm going to be real, some slim pickings in here. Some slim pickings to move back. Because I really like the edge class, but I mean, there's almost an incentive to wait, right? I mean, to be fair, there's really like 2 guys plus 1. Like, I like Kyle Kennard a lot, but there primarily are 2 guys to target here in JT and Micah Green. So if you do want to get ballsy, you could do that. But, like, that's going to be some tough sled in there, because Buffalo already gave away their 3rd round pick. Wow. That's tough. I mean, you guys could go for an edge yourself at this point, though. I just want to go offensive line for you sometime. You know, I think that you guys deserve that. Shoot. I mean, your offensive line needs help. But like Mike Green or JT, I know you guys would have liked a high motor player. JT's a high motored guy. I mean, I can't give myself to go and select an edge at this point for you guys, though. I can't. I know that I would deplete the interior offensive line value by 82. There's still going to be some good guys for us to draft at other positions. We're going to go Marcus Bowe out of Purdue. He's a tackle, but he's going to end up moving to guard, 6'5", 300. Super young, friend of the show, came on the show during the offseason, and somebody who could even play center for you. But we had a quick run there on the tackle to guard hybrids / center hybrids there. But you guys need offensive line help. Let's not play around. Let's just get what's actually going to be good for us. He's also extremely aggressive, which is going to be a super big win for you guys. At number 51 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, end up trading up for Jahad Campbell in the 1st. This selection, again, I was already trying to find a way to move back with the Seahawks and couldn't do it. I can't really justify that for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so other positions to dress, you could try to go after actually a corner. A boundary corner at this point could be worth it. Looking at guys like Quincy Riley, but I really love Jermari Harris. He has a lot of speed. He has a lot of potential that you can end up getting out of him. Noel Williams has a ton of potential too, but I wouldn't take him in the 2nd. But he's a high flyer. He's someone who we should probably draft in this mock draft. But of course, they don't have Jermari Harris in here. Trev, please bring on Jermari Harris. We're going to let Tony Grimes be the placeholder. Again, it's my number 36 player on my board, Jermari Harris out of Iowa. He's a little bit older, but he's also somebody who has a ton of experience, can step in day one. Your guys' defensive backcourt has not been reliably healthy, and so getting more and more potentially high-end talents there definitely would help out. At 52 for the Broncos, ended up going Luther Burden in the 1st. Might go Harold Fannin here, but I think Mason Taylor might take the crown as somebody who would be a little bit more of Sean Payton's alley. Like, I do know technically safety as well. Nick Eamon-Warry's available here. Nick Eamon-Warry's a stud. I mean, I don't think I could pass on Nick Eamon-Warry. I know that it's like a better pick to go somewhere else, but let's go best player available. We're going to go Nick Eamon-Warry. I technically have him above Xavier Watts, but you also look at the locality of Notre Dame. It makes sense why you'd also want to keep him around. But Nick Eamon-Warry, I know running back as well. Someone's going to complain about Caleb Johnson. Like, sometimes you just got to go best player available. It's a deep running back class. It's a solid safety class, but Nick Eamon-Warry, 6'3", 227, 4 interceptions on the year, including 1 pick 6, but technically 2 if it wasn't called back for a block in the back. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a super stud. For the Steelers, we drafted Trey Amos in the 1st via a trade back. We have 2 third-round picks. One of those thirds I'm going to use on a running back, but for right now, we're going to continue going after the wide receiver route with Jalen Royals. Jalen Royals is amazing after the catch. I mean, he's somebody who's he got his contested catch rate to 53.3% after it starting out in like the 20s, and he has over 60% on his career. The dude's an absolute stud. I think he's well worth the selection. He's built to be a Steeler as well, great after the catch. He's going to be someone who will be a massive asset for us. For the Chargers, we went Membu in the 1st. We're going to go Caleb Johnson here in the 2nd. I'm not the biggest Caleb Johnson guy on planet Earth, but at the same time, I know he's young. He's going to be great in the system that fits him best. I just don't think he's super duper flexible. I do think that there is going to be, Harbaugh, I can trust him to use Caleb Johnson properly, hence why I'm comfortable taking him, but he's young. He has a ton of tread still left on the tires, and he's still someone who proved to be a legit workhorse back. At number 55 for the Packers, I low-key am looking at Gray Zabel here to play center for you guys. It kind of feels like some of the Packers could do, But man, there's some good edge rushers that are slipping. Some really good ones, man. Shoot, that's just crazy to me. But I do know that interior offensive line is also going to be a target here of the Texans. So I'm not really comfortable if I'm the Packers looking that way. But also corner is something that you guys can absolutely look at. Max Harrison, I know you guys ran a ton of zone this year. Someone ended up bringing up the fact that you guys also like might have not had the proper personnel to be able to have Halfley be comfortable running a ton of man. But I also feel comfortable on in round 3 finding some dudes who would be good value there. So we got our edge rusher already. You could look at a 3 tech here. Darius Alexander's a fun one. Devontae Capehart, Alfred Collins, good players. Technically Vernon Broughton. Is Vernon Broughton even on here? No. Vernon Broughton's fun. But I mean, no, not quarterback. You could look at the receivers. There's some good ones on the board. I would say I'm going to throw a curveball because I think it's fair to say that Gray Zabel could play center for the Packers, and they love their tackle interior hybrids. So we're going to go Gray Zabel. I think that, I mean, hey, he's a rock solid player too. I think he's a very good interior offensive lineman when all is said and done, but we'll see where he ends up landing. At 56 for the Buffalo Bills, we trade up for Emeka Egbuka. I think this is a prime opportunity for us to either move back or select JT Tuimoloau. I don't know if you can pass on that. Sometimes you just got to go best player available. We're going back to Ohio State and going JT Tuimoloau. At 57, we got the Texans who went Matt Golden in the first, and we're going to snipe Tate Ratledge here in the second, just completely revamping that offense and adding a lot of firepower while also still protecting our QB. At 58 for the Las Vegas Raiders, we have gone Genty and Higgins. This is via that trade back with Jacksonville. And oh man, Mike Green's still available. I debate moving back up with the Eagles just for Mike Green. like I do think that it is potentially possible that we do make another move. But the Eagles, man, we've depleted their draft capital. I think it would be such a good fit, but I mean, they also are a team that will be re-signing a ton of free agents. Let's look. I don't think Howie's the type to spend this much draft capital. I think that he would send maybe a next year pick, but he's also the type to get next year picks when you end up moving. To be fair, for 4 spots, 164 is a legitimate value that you could end up tossing into this equation. Now, you could end up going 132 and getting something back, but Howie's not going to do that shit. I'd actually be fine with this as the Vegas Raiders too, being able to potentially move back up with some picks from 106 as well. For the Eagles, I think that there's a certain point where I'm going to say it's worth it. This is worth it to me. And I would say it's worth it for the Vegas Raiders as well, because again, I just don't think there's anybody that blows my socks off that won't be there at 62. And so the Eagles are making another move up, which again, I already know people are going to get nutty about that. We're going Mike Green. Just incredible value. Went Colston Loveland in the first. We're going Mike Green here in the second. Just kind of like the 2 players that fit exactly the role that you are looking for. And it's on a team that you don't have a ton of holes. It's kind of worth it, in my opinion. At number 59 for the Commanders, technically could have also moved up for Cam Williams, but oh man, Cam Williams is going to be a project. The Commanders took Nick Scorton there in the first. Now, I'm happy they did that because edge rusher is starting to get more and more depleted, which is good. I think that corner, again, talked about it, not a huge fan of the value right now. Based on my next best corner that's available, I think it's Quincy Riley. And I like Quincy Riley, super high IQ kind of corner. Someone who's also kind of a track athlete as well. But I don't want to take him here in the second. I don't think he's going to be someone who goes in the second round. So tight end's an underrated need. I don't trust Ben Sinnott to progress. He was somebody who I really didn't like the pickup of, but wide receiver as well, man. You do need to start developing your receiving core. Now, there's a ton of players that I know still will be there at 79, so I'm probably going to kick that one down the road. I do think that we can develop Cam Williams here. I think this is the team to do it. The Eagles could have jumped and selected him, but they need edge pretty badly, and I could see the Ravens being the team to snipe him. We're going to go Cam Williams there to the Washington Commanders, build through the trenches, and then we're going to weaponize in the next round. Baltimore Ravens took Wyatt Milam to build through the trenches in the first. I do think edge rusher Kyle Kennard makes a ton of sense here. You could try to go after someone like Savion. Actually, Savion Williams looks good in purple. He has a great contested catch rate. I mean, it's over 70% on his career. Great after the catch, unique build. something that would be an asset to the Ravens. We're going to do it. He has some simple like focus drops, which is weird, but I do think that the particular role that he can play is going to be awesome, and especially for the Ravens, it might be like a little bit crazy, but you might end up really netting positive out of that. For the Falcons, we've gotten Swinson and Jahdae Barron. I do think this is a prime opportunity to try to move back out. I know that we could just like go crazy and go Kyle Kennard here and just go full defense. And I think that might be the route I go. But I'm looking at someone like Cam Scatabo here, Trey Henderson. And I'm seeing a couple teams in here that definitely could be trying to snipe one of them. And I mean, I'm also seeing a team in the Raiders that could be looking via that trade back. They might feel comfortable with Jalen Milroe. I think I'm going to get aggressive again with the Browns. I think the Browns are going to get aggressive here. It's only a 6-spot move up, so I do think a 102 and returning a 185 like might be worth it. Like we might do 116 and then end up actually like flipping some extra picks in here. 169 could be worth it. Basically giving up 2 picks and then landing a little bit back. That's technically no, that doesn't make too much sense. I would say we'd have to go pick 200 as well, which to be fair for the Browns, not too many massive needs. And we are still getting 116 in return. We're going to do it. I like whenever it says 75% chance. I feel like that's a fair trade overall. And we're moving up with the Browns because it's a little more expensive. We're going after Jalen Milroe. Your offensive coordinator has experience with Jalen Milroe. So far, we have Abdul Carter and Josh Connerly. Sometimes you don't need a ton of quantity if you can get legitimate quality. And at 62 for the Vegas Raiders, I would have definitely considered Jalen Milroe at this point. Like, I think it's a best fit for the Cleveland Browns, and I think them getting aggressive is a smart thing. But at this point, we've gotten Genty, we've gotten Higgins. Looking at the defensive side, you could go after a corner, you could go after safety, linebacker as well. You got Carson Schwetzinger in here. Chris Paul deserves a lot of love as well. We've already again drafted 2 of the fun positions, and now it's more so like I'm gonna be honest, it's not great value for the majority of these positions. We could go after another running back to pair up with Ashton Genty, but I feel like we already have that. Is there a team that could be wanting a running back? Like, no. I was like, man, could a team come up and save us real quick? Could technically have the Falcons trade back up for Kyle Kennard, but I wanted to give them more picks than less. I think that was fair for both sides. Other teams that are looking for an edge, we could honestly, if the Panthers wanted to get bold, I'm not going to do it. They could try to move up for Kyle Kennard. But yeah, this is just a bad spot for the Raiders to be in. And so I'm seeing, is there any player that the Chiefs would probably try to go after? Harold Fannin? Is there a team that could be using a tight end? Like, you got the Saints here. The Saints have already moved up. Man, this is an interesting spot. Like, interesting evaluation of what teams should be doing here because Harold Fannin should be moved up for. I think he's a legitimate starting tight end in the NFL. Like, I don't think the Niners have that type of draft capital. They could get a little crazy. They used to be friends in the Bay Area. And San Fran got some capital, man. I didn't even realize that because they have so far addressed edge as well as offensive tackle. The next 2 positions I'd address are interior. Like, I think this is an interesting idea. This trade is lopsided. Your team owner will veto it. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I honestly don't mind this at all. If we could bundle both of these picks up right here and end up getting like 142 in return, I think this is great for both teams because first off, the Niners are going to be facing the Chiefs again in the Super Bowl. I don't want to face them with Harold Fannin. This team also needs a future at tight end, and Fannin needs 1 more year to bulk up a little bit more, but that dude is just awesome. And it really is kind of a drop off after him. Like, we could end up tossing in something else here as well if you want to do it. Feel free to modify that. But we're having the Niners game ballsy. They're moving up, and they are going to select their super weapon here in Harold Fannin Jr. 1,500 yards as a tight end in college is ridiculous. But this guy's great after the catch as well. He's a tenacious blocker, and with a more added weight and underneath the instruction of George Kittle, I really could see him flourishing into something special. At 63 for the Chiefs, would have been awesome to go after Harold Fannin. Not going to be the case. We drafted Siobhan Ravel in the first round. I think defensive interior at this point might be worth with someone like Darius Alexander. Alfred Collins certainly in the mix. But also, I think wide receiver could be on the board here. You got Xavier Restrepo, who would be really fun. But more importantly, I don't trust you guys to develop tackle. I don't think guard is something that you need to draft right away. You guys have shown a good job on day 2/day 3 of doing it, and primarily day 3. So looking at other positions to go after, edge rusher for sure. You do have Kyle Kennard here. You guys failed when you ended up bringing on Josh Uche earlier in the year. Could be a route that you go. Linebacker, not a bad route as well, because you might end up losing one of your dudes. You could go running back here, though. Cam Scatterbo might be worth it, but I do trust him to be there at 66. Like, the question is, who do I feel threatened being taken in the next couple of picks? And honestly, there's not really anybody. I'm going to go Cam Scatterbo here. I do think if there's a team that could trade up, like Cam Scatterbo is worth it. He is a really, really good running back. He is currently at number 52 on my board, and that's adjusted for positional value. This dude's fantastic. Needs to watch out for the fumbling, but he's built to be a Kansas City Chief, man. He really is. He's a hard runner. He's just a fun player to watch. Detroit Lions took Jack Sawyer there in the second round. At this point, interior offensive line seems to be the pick that makes the most sense, but I do want to consider wide receiver as well. I'm trying to look for someone who'd be a little bit more reliable as a contested catch guy. That's Jack Besh here. Jack Besh as well. I'm trying to see where his where his stats are at, but I was trying to see if maybe we could see. Oh, look at that. Most drafted by the Steelers. That's interesting. Steelers and Packers. But I wanted to see where he lined up the most. There we go. I'm tripping. I like the fact that he has so many reps in both sides, or in both the slot as well in the boundary. He's a reliable option too. His brother passed away, unfortunately, in that New Orleans terror attack. So this guy is more driven now than ever. I think he's going to be a really good wide receiver. Jack Besh going at 64. At 65 for the New York Giants, ended up going Shedeur and Darian. I would have loved to have gone offensive tackle for this team. To be fair, Ozzie Trapilo could absolutely be that option. But, I mean, I don't really know if the Giants are going to be looking fully for that route. You already went after a corner. You went after your quarterback. I do think another weapon could be on the board. I do still think interior offensive line could be, and I really wish PFF updated the board to have guys who returned not be on it. Like, I do think it's not that hard to do that. I'm just going to be real. You know what? With Evan Neal not necessarily being the necessary future, I'm going to go right down the road to Boston College. We're going to go to Massachusetts, and we're going to take Ozzie Trapilo. We're actually going to do it. Yeah. We got to protect Shedeur as much as possible, right? I mean, you might as well do it. Ozzie Trapilo going to be the pick. At 66 for the Chiefs, had, my thought process going Cam Scatterbo, and I was happy with it. I think that wide receiver could still be on the board for this team. You look at the receivers that are still on this team after this year, not a ton. And you can go Ricky White here. Honestly, I love Ricky White. I don't know why people don't like Ricky White. I'm just going to be so dead ass. Like, I don't get it. This dude had a statistical drop-off, but he also had a quarterback change in the middle of the year with a quarterback that now runs as much, if not more, in Haj Malik Williams. And the dude still produced, and he had 4 punt blocks. Like, I seriously don't get the disrespect for Ricky White. Now, I think that the best value would probably be going defense interior at this point. You got Deion Walker. And at this point, I think that if you can pair up Chris Jones with Deion Walker, it's worth the relative risk. So we'll do it. Deion Walker's the choice. At 67 for the Falcons, we have gone Swinson and Barron. And I do think that we could try to double up at edge. We could go after Gillette, Landon Jackson, and kind of just, be comfortable with the result right there. Honestly, not a bad choice. Like, I do think Kyle Kennard's better than them, but I do think Landon Jackson's just really freaky at 280, and you have a technician already now in Braden Swinson. It's not bad to triple up on defense. We're going to do it. We're going to go Landon Jackson because we're going to get 2 different body types to be able to play a multitude of roles, and I think those 2 could be the starting edges for the team in the future. 68 for the Vegas Raiders. We're back on the board with them. We technically have 3 picks for them as well, so that is awesome. We've already picked wide receiver as well as running back. At this point, I do see that we could even go that quarterback route. You got Will Howard here. I love Will Howard, but I actually am going to select something that people are going to lose their marbles for in a good way. Someone who I'm not over the moon for myself, but I'm consistently regrading this guy because he's had a phenomenal career there at Ole Miss. We're going to go after Jackson Dart at 68 overall. At 69 overall, we got the Patriots with the nicest pick in the draft. We got Hunter. We got Ursary, kind of like developmental tackle. I think that's a good spot to be. We're going to go Kyle Kennard at this point. Best player available is always the smart thing to do. At number 70, we got the Jaguars, who traded up and have gone after 2 Michigan guys, Kenneth Grant and Will Johnson. I think interior offensive line could be on the board at this point if you find the right player. And I honestly love Emory Jones. He ended up coming out, which means that he got a good draft grade, but the dude struggled at tackle. I think he's going to be, honestly, a really good guard. Super young as well. He is like a quasi tackle, and I think that he's worth rolling the dice on here into the third round. He's just somebody who I could definitely see being here for the Saints, even for the Bears. So taking him on the spot. T-Mac Shamar Stewart for the New Orleans Saints. Love it. At this point, we've addressed edge as well as wide receiver. I think defensive interior Alfred Collins would not be a bad idea, but we could go back to Clemson. I actually really like the potential of Darius Alexander. I mean, Darius Alexander is just built differently, man. I mean, he's just so well-rounded. This is more of a lack of awareness of Darius Alexander. I've seen some comps out there. My boy James Foster comped him to Keanu Benton. If you can get a Keanu Benton-style player at 71, it's kind of like a time to sign me up, right? So we're going to go Darius Alexander there at 71. We might try to trade back into the end of the third round and try to get a tight end if possible. At number 72 for the Chicago Bears, we've got Will Campbell, Walter Nolan, Princey Umanmielen. I love it. That's a really good trio, man. That is something I'm very happy to see. Xavier Restrepo is just built to be in that long-term role where Keenan Allen is. Like the definition of reliable as well. I think that might be the route I go. We could look at offensive line here. You got Jack Nelson. I love Jack Nelson. I'm still reevaluating the tackle class. I got to see. Like early on in the year, I reevaluated him, and I still thought he was really, really good. Have not regraded him in all 22 yet, but that's like literally what I've been doing with every ounce of free time that I have. But for the Bears, I mean, running back could be on the board here. I mean, you look at someone like Quinshawn to be a thumper with what you have as well. I mean, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. And you know what? Let's respect it. We're going to go Quinshawn Judkins there at 72. At 73 for the Jaguars, we've gone now after Will Johnson, Kenneth Grant, Emory Jones. We need an actual running back that we can trust. This is going to be Trey Henderson. The running backs are going to go back-to-back. We need a home run hitter that is going to be more inexpensive and more reliable than Travis Etienne. At number 74 for the Carolina Panthers, we're going after the edge route. We ended up trading up for Mason Graham, and we have 2 third-round picks now. We do. And I love Kamen Rucker, man. I don't know why people are hating on him. He had a little bit of an injury bug in the middle of the year, but I also love Antoine Powell-Ryland. This guy in his worst game ended up grading as a top 32 player for me. Like, I just love him to death. Like, both of them, you literally cannot go wrong. To be fair, though, North Carolina, gotta bring him in. I mean, like, Carolina boys gotta stick in Carolina. I think Antoine Powell-Ryland will be an absolute steal, but we're going to go Kamen Rucker there for the Panthers. I mean, again, we ended up trading up, we ended up waiting, and we still ended up getting a fantastic player at 265 pounds. Number 75 for the Las Vegas Raiders. We have now gone Dart, Higgins, Genty. Let's go to the defense. Let's do it. We're going to look at corners here, and Max Hairston fits the identity to a T. He is going to be a gritty, athletic, man coverage corner that has a ton of potential. I don't know why he kind of sucked this year, but at the same time, that's why he's here in the third round. People were taking him as high as the first. At number 76 for the Dallas Cowboys, we've taken Hampton and Sanders. I think that the right move would be to look at the wide receivers. Restrepo would be great, but then you're having to put your number one weapon back out to the boundary. I'm going to go Ricky White for all the reasons I mentioned. 4 pump blocks over the past year. I comp him to mini Marvin Harrison. He is currently, again, I haven't regraded the wide receivers. That's right after offensive tackles at a spot 49 on my board. And again, you add in the fact that this dude is an elite special teamer. I don't know why people don't love him. And we're going to go after Ricky White, though. 77 for the New England Patriots. We've gotten Kyle Kennard, Ariante Ursary, and Travis Hunter. Kind of a low-key masterclass there. And other positions to draft. You could look at running back at this point. You got Devin Neal here, who I am absurdly over the moon for. I love... Where the hell did he go? Jordan James. I love Jordan James. I don't know why people I don't know why Trev doesn't have Jordan James too high, but I love Jordan James. But I do think that could be a really good get for this team. Again, Ursery, Hunter, Kennard kind of built through the trenches, and we got to get something a little flashy. I do think we need to look at the wide receivers as well. And looking at the wide receivers that are best, I mean, the guy who I love to death is Ja'Cory Brooks. I mean, first off, 70% contested catch rate, sick. But this dude is always open. I don't know, again, I don't understand why people aren't loving him. I mean, he had a struggle year in 2023. I mean, look at that. He was playing 6 games and he only got, 9 or 30 yards? But, I mean, this dude, when given the opportunity, had over 1,000 yards. And the best thing is, Tyler Shuck did not target him enough. And that's the crazy thing. I think this guy's going to run in like the 4.3 range. He is a burner. He's a smooth route runner as well. He's someone who I think would be a really good asset there for New England. We're going to go Ja'Cory Brooks. At number 78 for the Arizona Cardinals, we have gone Pierce and Lott. Can we go back to Tennessee? I'm just curious. We can go Dylan Sampson. That would be kind of crazy. But no, we need to address the offensive line as well. And Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon is a really, really fun tackle. 6'7", 322. He has a really unique build in terms of arm length. Jack Nelson would be fun as well. I really like Jack Nelson a lot. He's somebody, again, 8 pressures on the year, including only 1 sack. I don't get what the hate is on him. Like, he's someone who I have literally, where's he out on my board? I think when I regraded him, he slipped a little bit, but not too crazy. Like, I can't even find him at the moment, but I think he's somewhere in like the top 70. Like, I genuinely love the guy. You got Andrew Armstrong that I got to show some more love to as well. But he's somewhere in here. I'm tripping balls. He's 56. Like, again, pre-updated evaluation. But as of early this year, he was the 56th best player on my board. I'm going to take him and see what happens there for the Arizona Cardinals. At 79 for the Commanders, they ended up taking Cam Williams, Nick Scorton. Really good dynamic duo there. We're going Xavier Restrepo all freaking day, baby. Xavier Restrepo's awesome. He's just, not the youngest guy, but at the same time, he's just a slot. And that's not a bad thing, but he's just very limited in the role that he can play. This team, that role is a very big need. So we're going to be taking him. 80 for the Colts, Warren Watts. Love it. At this point, I want to go after the defensive line. And Gillette is interesting. Jared Ivey's fun. I think Tyler Barron's more up their alley. More of a technician. Just a really, really solid edge rusher. 81 for the Bengals. We've gone after 2 Ohio State players. Are there any more Ohio State guys? I don't think we have any. Well, we have Lathan Ransom. That low-key could be a good pick for the Bengals. But we've already addressed offensive line as well as defensive interior. I do think you need to continue looking at edge. You could go Josiah Stewart here, who has had a fantastic year. He's 6'1", 245. But, oh, man, I love Antoine Powell-Ryland. You'd probably go for Stewart, though, over Ryland. So, because he's more based in the cold climate as well. Had a ton of success this year. I'm going to roll the dice. Let's go after Josiah Stewart here. I think that's a smart move. Continue building the defensive line and continuing on with the Seattle Seahawks. We went after Marcus Bowe, Malachi Starks. Those are 2 really big impact players on this team. I could definitely see them still looking at the interior of the offensive line, but the player who I'd probably look at is Charles Grant. Like, Charles Grant is a freak. I mean, look at this. 6'4", 300 pounds, but he's a crazy athlete. Could definitely see him there for Seattle. But at the same time, you also could be looking for someone like Jared Ivey, but Antoine Powell-Ryland's the one that sticks out to me. I love Antoine Powell-Ryland. He's a top 32 player on my board. In his worst game, he looked amazing. He does a great job of destroying tackles' anchors. I think he's still developing a little bit, but I mean, for how far he is in terms of his progression, I think he could legitimately take a noticeable amount of reps year 1, and that's going to be worth it at 82. 83 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've gone after Giad Campbell and Jermari Harris, not Tony Grimes. Jermari Harris, number 36 player on my board. I think the smart thing to do here would be to go after a linebacker. And Chris Paul Jr. has been putting on a show this year, really solid in coverage as well. Giad Campbell is an edge for those of y'all who are wondering about the role that he would play, because it wouldn't make sense to go after 2 linebackers, and I would agree. At 84 for the Broncos. Yeah, y'all still can get some running back help. I mean, you got Devin Neal here. You got Jordan James, Taj Brooks. I mean, I love Taj Brooks. He's such a stud. But, I mean, looking at my next best available, I have Jordan James as my next one, but I'm going to be far from disagreeing. Where the hell do I have? I'm trying to remember where I actually ended up having Devin Neal. 74 on my board. I love Devin Neal. He's an all-around back that can literally do everything. And I got to see him in person versus Baylor, and he absolutely ate. And that was not even his best statistical game. It was actually one of his mediocre ones. Devin Neal is so worth the pick. I mean, Eamon Wari, Neal, and Luther Burden. I mean, what else do you need? Like, seriously, what else do you need? Then for the Steelers, we've got Amos as well as Royals. I mean, we could technically go quarterback here with Will Howard. Like, Will Howard could make a lot of use of our receiving core. I have not done that, but I'm actually kind of intrigued. I would be kind of screwing over the Raiders in terms of my vision for what the Raiders could do. But also, I do think, Tom Brady could want to get Quinn Ewers and, develop him there. Will Howard could be a really good Steeler. Again, you pair him up with Jalen Royals. You pair him up there with George Pickens, because I swear to God, we should not be trading him away. I'm going to roll the dice. Let's see what happens. I mean, at 85, who gives a shit? It's Will Howard. It's a great value. At number 86, though, for the Chargers, we went running back and tackle. I think at this point, we could try to focus on some defensive line here, some defensive interior help potentially. I love DeMonte Capar. He's a pocket buster, like a really, really good player. Alfred Collins is a stud as well, but I do think we need to go one more time to the offense. Tight end is available. I really like Gunnar Helm. I do think he's not a great receiver. Like, he's good after the catch. He's a good work ethic guy. He has some, he's just a very fun tight end to watch. Mason Taylor is going to be a little bit more of that tight end that I think will be more Harbaugh-esque. And so if you really want to go Harbaugh-esque, you can go Jake Brenningstool and pretty much have him be Colson Loveland. But I think if you want someone a little bit more well-rounded, Mason Taylor will be your guy. At number 87 for the Green Bay Packers, we have taken Michael and Gray Zabel. At this point, we need to look at those corners desperately. And the good thing is, not many of them went. And if you're looking more at someone who has the potential with the IQ, I'm going to be Rocky Quincy Riley. We're going to be losing a corner from Louisville, and we're going to be gaining one instead. We're going to be netting 0, I should say. At 88 for the Carolina Panthers, we have taken Kamen Rucker and Mason Graham. Not many more positions I think you guys are desperate for. You could look at a wide receiver like Isaiah Bond to stretch the field. That's not a bad idea. I could also look at a safety here. You got Winston, Ransom, Bakuba, like really, really good choices. But I do think Isaiah Bond came out unhealthy. At the start of the year, when I regraded him, he's a legit first-round player. I'm going to roll the dice. At number 89 for the Houston Texans. Whew, a lot of good players on the board, man. A lot of really good ones. I'm excited for every team to be able to snipe some good players. But you got Golden and Ratledge. Let's go to the defensive line and let's not mess around. We're going to go Alfred Collins here. Just high floor, Texas, makes sense. Number 90 for the Los Angeles Rams. We've taken Azariah Thomas. We have 2 more picks at 90 as well as 100. And at this point, I could go Gunnar Helm. That would kind of, low-key kind of fits what you guys are looking for in a tight end. I love Luke Lachey compared to the consensus at the moment. He just hasn't been reliably healthy. Really good tight end. And then also Elijah Arroyo. I gotta at him as well. He is a really fun player. But we have so far drafted Azariah. We could draft a potential tackle for the future. I don't know why tight end still clicked. But we still could try to develop Charles Grant. I don't think that's the smart thing to do. But we also could go linebacker because this team needs it. And Carson Schwezinger is someone who's getting a ton of love. He also grew up in Los Angeles, went to my high school, Shadow Oaks Christian. And you know what? I think that's a smart move. He's a fun player, very rangy. He pops off in terms of athleticism. He's going to go there at 90. 91 to the Jets. Josh Simmons, Derek Harmon, another team that should be looking for a boundary corner pretty desperately. You got Mello Dotson, who's awesome here. You got Denzel Burke, who's finally coming back to form, but a little bit athletically limited. I think the one that fits the best is Noel Williams. He's a freak athlete at 6'1", 200 pounds, still developing, but great ball skills as well. 7 interceptions, I believe, on the year. 10 forced incompletions. And definitely somebody that will be taken a little bit earlier than I'm fully comfortable with, but this is a great fit for him in terms of the surrounding cast for him to succeed. At 92 for the Baltimore Ravens, we have taken Wyatt Milam, Savion Williams as well. At this point, we're actually going to go and look at Ashton Gillette, the pocket buster himself. Doesn't have great athleticism, but he sure as hell can burst the pocket, 6'3", 275. Minnesota Vikings, I'm going to be going after a running back at this point. We ended up taking Tyler Booker in the first. And you got Dylan Sampson here. I love Dylan Sampson, but not that much. I'm much lower on him than the consensus. I will admit he's another player who I will be going back and continuously regrading. Same thing with DJ Giddens. Y'all know my thoughts on him. But Jordan James is the guy who I really, really, really like. Like, I really like Jordan James. And so I'm going to select him here. He's a top 60 guy on my board. At number 94 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we have taken Trey Amos, Jalen Royals, Will Howard. Talk about a killer trinity. I love it. Defensive interior-wise, I would have loved... Oh, I didn't realize DeMonte Capehart was still on the board. I was like, I already talked about Pocket Buster, but I was not talking about DeMonte Capehart. That's probably the guy I'm leaning towards. Other positions we could look at, you could develop a tackle. Don't think it's going to be worth it. Running back certainly is on the mind, but at this point, how about no? You know what? Yeah, I like that. DeMonte Capehart, I don't know why people don't like him that much. I mean, besides the fact he had, five pressures on the year? Like, the dude's just like a pocket buster, man. He really blows up the pocket, and that's going to be someone who you can end up continuing to tool and end up making him into a super stud. I'm going to go after DeMonte at this point. Kansas City probably even would have went DeMonte Capehart for them on top of Deone Walker, but we went after corner, running back, as well as defensive interior. I do think an edge at this point could certainly work. And looking at the ones available, Quindarius Robinson and Jared Ivey. Jared Ivey works a lot. I would just say end of day 2 where this range is. Not the biggest Jared Ivey guy, but I also think tight end should be in this realm. And you got Terrence Ferguson, you got Gunnar Helm, you got Jake Brenningstool. And to play the Kelsey role, I think you need to have some solid after the catch ability, some good route running as well, and some high IQ. That's actually what Jake Brenningstool does the best. I don't really understand how PFF grades tight ends, but he's a top 50 player for me on my board. At 96 for the New York Jets, we've gone Simmons, Harmon, and Noel Williams. Could even go Gunnar Helm at this point, but we fixed the offensive line and we've done all that. We could try to go after a quarterback here. Like, Dylan Gabriel wouldn't be a bad choice. Like, I'm just going to be so real. Dylan Gabriel would not be a bad choice. And I'm kind of potentially going to go that route, but they do need defensive back. There's some great ones on the board. We're going to go after Kevin Winston Jr. At 97 for the Minnesota Vikings, let's look at the defensive line one more time to see if there's anybody here. Darrell Jackson is returning. Again, PFF, please, for the love of God. Like, there also is Vernon Broughton that I could end up taking here using a placeholder for. We've gotten Booker and Jordan James respectively. Again, if you want to take another back, feel free to do so. But we do need to go corner. I'm tripping. I don't know why the hell I was looking at those other positions. We need to go after corner pretty desperately. You got Denzel Burke, but I really like Mello Dotson. Mello's fun. You could also go after Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant's a fun one. But you actually... The one I really like the most for the potential is Dave Sniggbenosin. He's not the best athlete. Ooh, you actually have a role for Jabbar Muhammad on this team. The Jabbar's a top 32 guy on my board, and I'm proud of it. I mean, that's as of the Ohio State game was his last like all 22 grade, but this dude's a great player. Like, he's just being knocked because he's smaller. But I think this dude's an absolute feisty beast. We're going to go after Jabbar Muhammad there. At 98 for the Miami Dolphins, we gone after Jalen Walker, Jonah Savania. We're going to potentially go after defensive interior here as well. And we're actually going to go after Vernon Broughton. We're going to use a placeholder here. And we're going to use Darrell Jackson as the placeholder. It's Vernon Broughton out of Texas. At number 99 for the Las Vegas Raiders, we've gone after Jackson Dart, Max Hairston, Jaden Higgins, Ashton Genty. Kind of a killer group of dudes, if I'm just going to be 100 with you. Like, that's a really good group. And at this point, I'm going for the best box safety in the class. That's Lathan Ransom to end it off. And at 100 with the Rams, I mean, we've gone Azarai Thomas, Carson Schwezinger. This might be the pick where you could try, like McVay could try to get something out of Quinn Ewers. Just like be sold on the potential. Man. I don't think he should be it, but again, you guys can fill in this pick with what you want. I do think that McVay would be excited about the opportunity to be able to mold Quinn Ewers to something of what he would like for a franchise quarterback. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching and showing the love that you guys always do. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.